Alright, Brush Monkeys, we are back, and this week we're starting in on the Airbrushed base coats for our Call for Help figure here. This is going to be done a little bit differently than most of our painting because it is an art piece and it is going to be a little more involved. The colors I'm using right now is I've got Liquitex acrylic ink in titanium white and sap green. This says sap green permanent. I'm not sure what the difference is. But those two colors, and then the rest of them are Daler-Rowney FW inks. I've got crimson, got indigo, I've got sepia, and then I've got flesh tint ink. I figure between those colors we should get a nice decent base coat on this figure and do a little bit of under shading too. I'm going to mix the red and blue to get red and blue and maybe a little bit of the white just to get a nice purple kind of bruised looking undertone to do some of the shadows around like the underside here and the underside of her arm, downside of her face. Just any place where it's almost coming in contact with the water. And that sounds weird to do purple around there, but once we do the flesh tone over the top of it, it's going to look like a much more subtle, not quite bruised look, but it's going to be shaded flesh and not just flesh like it would be if I just sprayed it on there. All the water parts are getting blue on it, and then I'll probably try to kind of fade that out to a lighter green on the outside. And of course these bushes here will all be green. And yeah, that's going to be that's going to be what I'm aiming for. So we'll see how close I get to that. I'm hoping the sepia and the flesh tones will go on over this stuff and look shaded and not just muddy. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start mixing up some purple and turn on the airbrush and get on it. Oh, word about the airbrush. I'm using a Badger Sotar 2020 with an extended trigger there and a finger rest. And this is really good for doing inks because it's got a very, very fine trigger, and acrylic paints, even when thinned down a lot, tend to clog up on the airbrush. So inks are really best to go through the Sotar. So I'm hoping the use of the inks plus the really fine needle will give me the control to put the ink exactly where I need it and not overspray a whole lot while doing this. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and shut off here and get started. So wish me luck. See you soon. Bye. Alright, Brush Monkeys, we're back. And I've got the Call for Help undershaded. I did a lot of purple up under the arm there. And you can kind of see where it oversprayed a little bit. That's not a big deal. That's going to be covered up mostly by the skin tone. And you can see where I've done all the pre-shading around the body, in the kind of hollow spaces of her body, like her ribs, underside of her breasts, the underside of her chin and neck, her collarbones, behind the ear, cheeks and face. Looks really corpse-like right now, which is kind of what I'm going for, because, I mean, obviously this looks like somebody almost dead in a pond. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of the sepia and flesh tone and go over this pre-shading, and then I'm going to do the highlights with just a straight flesh tone, and we're going to see how that looks. And I think it's going to look really fantastic. If it turns out like I hope, I think it's going to look really good. So I'm going to do a little bit of shaded flesh first, and then we're going to do the highlighted flesh, and hopefully all this little pre-shading will show through without looking too purplish. Know what I mean? So that's how she looks so far. She's going to come along pretty nicely. Alright, see you soon. Bye. Alright, Brush Monkeys, I am back. And as you can see, we've got the skin tones pretty well done on our girl. Got some nice highlighting across the tops of the thighs and highlights of the breasts, the face. You see highlights really well from this side too. And you can see how that pre-shading, along with the sepia ink, excuse me, really gave some nice shadows around the edges there, while still allowing for some really nice highlights on the upper parts. And I think she looks really, really fantastic. I'm going to take a break and let this, let the flesh tones and the inks really dry up, dry nicely, and then we're going to come back and start doing the water. You see, I got a lot of overspray from the skin. That's not going to be too much of a problem when I go to do the water. One of the things I really like about the Sotar is the amount of control it gives you when doing fine-tuned stuff like that. So I'm going to have a little bit of overspray down here at the bottom. It doesn't really matter if I get a little bit of overspray around the edges, because once I do the water, I'm going to, one of the last steps we're going to do as far in the brushwork and finishing video is put some water effects over all this. So some of what gets oversprayed is going to end up being underwater anyway. But I think so far she's coming along really, really nicely. I really like how this is looking. And yeah, we're going to take a break and then we'll come back and do the water. So I'll see you soon. Bye. Alright, brush monkeys, we're back. And as you can see, I've done the water and the plants. Now the water I was done with the De La Rowney FW Indigo ink, about 3 or 4 drops of that with one of the Liquitex Sap Green Permanent. Now it turns out the Sap Green Permanent is kind of a clear green ink. It's almost like the Tamiya clear inks. So what it ended up doing was it thinned down the blue just a little bit and gave it just a hint of a green color. And so on the deep places, it really looks nice and dark blue, and then it's kind of a greenish over the top of it. So once I realized what it was doing, I went ahead and gave it a couple layers of the blue. The blue also kind of has its own depths and striations depending on how much I painted on there at any given time. And sometimes it got a little really dark, but it also happened to be really dark in between the waves. So that was nice. And it came out so much better than I thought it would. When I went to go paint the green on the plants, that's when I realized it was a clear green, because all of this came out really, really light. And so I kind of airbrushed a light glaze around the outside edge of the water and around the edges of the plants in the clear green, and then went over the plants with clear green, and they came out really light. And then when I was spraying it on my test book right there, I realized the subsequent layers over it here came out darker. So I went ahead and gave the plants another layer of the green, and I think that's where you get that really nice almost natural variation in the greens. So I think that's going to look really nice, and I think when I go to dry brush that later with the acrylic paint, I think it's going to look really good. So all I've got left to do is her hair, and I've decided I'm going to go ahead and do that with orange ink. It's going to look a little weird, but it's going to pre-shade it for the blonde that I'm going to paint it later. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here and let all this dry, and then we'll come back and pre-shade that hair. All right? See you soon. All right, brush monkeys, her hair is done. There's been a little bit of overspray, but honestly, it just got a little overspray right where her eyebrow would have been anyway. So a little bit of overspray there, a little bit of overspray on the chest, but not a big deal. Nothing that's not going to get cleaned up in the next stage. Which, speaking of the next stage, this is going to go ahead and wrap it up for this part of the painting. This is all we can do with the airbrush. Next week we're going to get into the brushwork and finishing, where we do all the little details. A little bit more shading around the face and the eyes, any makeup she's wearing, eyeshadow, lipstick, etc. A little more shading on her torso in certain places. We'll do the water effects, we'll do the bushes, we'll do her fingernails there, if we want anything on her fingernails. And we'll just wrap this up. And I think she looks really good so far. and I'm really looking forward to seeing how she turns out when she's completely finished. I really like that dark bluish green background kind of sets off the skin tone, and I think it's going to look really fantastic. That bluish green background in turn is going to be set off really nicely by the dark dark red that we do the base. We're going to do it in a red oak stain, but we'll get to that in a couple of weeks. For right now, I'm going to wrap up this video, call it done, and next week we'll start in on the brushwork and finishing. Alright, so thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Bye. Hey Brush Monkeys, Tom from Flying Monkey Studios here. If you like what you see, click like down below. If you want to be notified when new videos come out, click subscribe. And in the meantime, if you want to see how to add one of the miniatures that we've painted on this channel to your own collection, check out our Instagram, Tumblr, and Patreon sites. If you want to support us in doing what we do, check out my Patreon site, check out my merch store at storefrontier.com/flymonkeystudios. You can get t-shirts, sweatshirts, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, all kinds of stuff there. Go check that out. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.